from overlooked to fully booked. Over the past few months, we've talked about how to build relationships and how to stay consistent. Now is time for the next step, becoming the business everyone loves to recommend. We're talking to Tyler Ross with Alpha Insurance because referrals don't just come from asking, they come from earning. When people know what you do, trust how you do it, and enjoy working with you, they don't just hire you, they talk about you. And that's where your business truly begins and thrives and starts to scale. So thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, it's an honor. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So I hear that you make individual clients feel like that you only have them as their one client. How do you seem to be able to pull that off?
Well, if you could tell me too, that would help. It's one of those things that, everybody, they don't talk to insurance agents often, right? So we are their only insurance agent, ideally, or we aim to be. So when they need you, right? So
Yes.
Just customer experience is everything. And I started in my career knowing that, this is just a people business, people just want to be taken care of. And, we've set that expectation with our clients. So it does become a challenge at a certain point as you scale with maintaining that. But, just delegation and building the team out is a big thing for us. Like, having put the right people in the right places so that our clients still get that consistent, fast, reliable experience. It's tricky, but it's all of, start with the end in mind is basically what it is how do you make sure that person gets that quick response time? How do you make sure that that person gets what they need in a concise way? So team is really the answer to that one.
It really helps you get there and
it's
have
the
yourself
only way.
right.
The only, you have to replicate yourself and having the right people that are really good or better than you at certain things so that, as long as the customer is taken care of, that's the end goal. So, yeah, it's a lot of trial and error, and I wouldn't say that I've got it figured out. Certainly, do not have it figured out. But just trying to delegate things so that at the end of the day, the customers, and when I'm a customer, I think of it this way too. I don't care if I call a plumber or call a plumbing service. I don't care if the owner comes out or if it's their world-class technician, or if it's their sister who's a fantastic plumber. As long as I'm being taken care of, that's all that matters. Yeah. So, and I've had to learn to grasp that too, that, I can't do everything, and nor should I try. So, building a team out that really serve our clients well is what's really helped in the long run, for sure.
Which is really challenging in the industry you're in because it's always Alpha Insurance with your name on it.
Correct.
Right? So how do you lend that credibility to team members so that they're fine talking to Susie as opposed to talking to Tyler?
It's tricky, and I'll be honest, like there are still some, just today, my aunt was like, I don't want to talk to your office, I want to talk to you. So, we talked to her.
Nancy.
So, right, yeah. So like, but it's been a slow transition. I think people realize, clients are very, our clients are the best. Like our clients are really, really good people. And I think it's started with taking our team, and when I hire someone, when we bring someone on board, what are we trying to accomplish? And when we bring a team member on board, here's who we are. And if you want to be a part of us, this is what it means. And it means serving clients at a very high level. And we're very, very particular about how we do everything. And when you're, when those people come on board and they get to where they can achieve what the client's needing at a high level of experience, it kind of goes back to what I said earlier. The client doesn't necessarily care whether they talk to me, as long as whoever they're talking to is also a rock star and gets things done, consistently. So, but it can be a challenge. But one of the ways we do that is, someone's reaching out and saying, "Hey, Tyler, I need your help with X, Y, and Z." And I may say something like, "Hey, thanks for reaching out. We'll be more than happy to take care of this. Listen, I'm going to connect you with Misty. She's a rock star. She is top of class of what she does. She's going to take care of you. I'm going to be right here alongside to make sure things go smoothly. And then I know Misty's going to crush it. And of course, if she has issues, she'll come to me, and I'm kind of making sure that, I may not be the one doing every little thing, but I'm just generally making sure that every customer is taken care of the way that they need to be. Yeah. So it's tricky, but that's what's worked for us.
It sounds like you've got a very well-establised culture, if I had to put a word to it, right?
My team is top-notch.
How do you, in the hiring process, look and say, this person is going to fit that
Well, when I figure that out, I'll let you know.
Okay.
And it is tricky because I have been very fortunate, very blessed that I have, just some of it's just been a God thing, the way the people have landed in our team and they have flourished so well. But I think a lot of it is, most of my hires have also been word of mouth, people I've known, and not necessarily going to LinkedIn or going to, one of the recruiting websites and just trying to find an applicant. It's more about, who do you know and would this person be a good fit and why? And then when we do the interview is really, trying to help them understand this is how we operate. This is what makes us different. So not only when a client's calling us to get a quote, setting that expectation with a client, like this is how we're different, but doing that with the team, this is what we do different. This is why we do it. And starting with the end goal in mind is we live in a world in our agency where customer experience and referrals are our entire lifeline. Like that is it. So if you start with that in mind, servant's heart, like we serve people at the highest level we possibly can, and then what needs to be true for that to happen, and then working back and then trying to train them up in that role. And it's a trial and error. Trust me. It's again, I'll come back to you when I get it all figured out because it's but seeing your team go and like do things at a high level, it's very rewarding. So it's been great to watch that and see that unfold over the last few years.
So I was curious if you had an idea, because my sister, I helped her open a medical practice, and we'll talk about her in the YouTube training that I just did. And one of the things we decided we were going to try in the hiring process, when we exhausted, hey, do you know anybody else? Bring your friends, because hopefully they're like you. When we exhausted that, we actually wrote down like what our culture is. And it was riffing. AI is such an awesome tool, but it was riffing on, talking through it and then like make this something. And so we have them. We put it in front of them. The first time they sit down, we put it in front of them. We say, I just got to go grab something real quick. Have them read it peacefully, and then come back and say, well, what did you think of that? And if they light up, then it is, oh my gosh, this is the perfect place for me. And if they can talk all about it, and if they're like, don't have much to say about it, then
it's hard. That's a good idea. And asking an open-ended question. How do you feel about that? Or tell me how you feel. Because it is hard to find. It's hard to find good help. Everybody, everyone's always hiring good quality people. And, I think Dana even has a saying, I've heard it, I'm sure it's a quote, you're better off with exceptional, not to knock anyone, but you're better off to have an exceptional process and exceptional culture with an average person than you would be to have exceptional people and nobody knows what's going on. Right. So, but what really happens is when you get an exceptional team and an exceptional culture, like the sky's the limit. But it is tricky to get everyone all the time on, pulling the wagon the same direction, and with the same mindset. It's a challenge, and but when it goes well, it goes very well. That's the tricky part.
And I think you get a lot of help around you, right? Because when everybody understands the culture, then they know when something's not right in the culture, and they can raise a flag faster.
And they stand out. When you've got someone who's not pulling their weight or doing what they need to do, they stick out like a sore thumb. And when you create that culture, also like the good example would be we're all on the same team, we're going the same direction. So there's no more of sometimes corporately you'll get this, well, that's not my job, and we don't really have that. Like our end goal is the same, right? And we're all doing the same thing. And I've even tried to do some of our pay structures in stuff that's really hard to be tangible, like experience and are you going above and beyond? Are you doing the little things and it's hard to incentivize that monetarily, because it's did you have a good attitude? Like what's that metric, right? So but trying to do that in a way like I want them to realize, including me, at the end of the day, if we are serving our clients well, I mean very well, all of the numbers we're trying to achieve, all that will be taken care of, but it all starts and ends with the customer instead of this is my job. You get a lot of you hear people that are unsatisfied and unhappy at work. It becomes more of a job than it is their career and what they love to do. And it's granted there are challenging days in anything you do, but that's the $1 million question is how do you how do you keep and maintain that? And I think it's just a constant, okay, this didn't work, let's try this. But end goal, always having that end goal in mind, I think is key, crucial.
Why do you think your customers refer you?
I think it's very simple. I think of it like this, which obviously I'm in the insurance business, but there's an analogy I give a lot, and my team hears this, they would probably roll their eyes because they hear me say it all the time. Like, let's just say, give an example. It's the raving fans mentality. Mm-hmm. If you and your significant other, just kind of think to yourself about this. If you and your significant other go to a restaurant and it's let's not pick on Cracker Barrel, but we'll use Cracker Barrel. Okay. You go there. Their food's fine. They're going to call you sweetie. They're going to call you honey. It's going to be a fine experience, right? You're not going to have a bad time at a Cracker Barrel. But you're not going to go from that Cracker Barrel and go up to your buddies that weekend and be like, listen, let me tell you something. I just went to this place. It's called Cracker Barrel. I don't know if you've heard of it. You need to try it. So what that tells you is average doesn't cut it. So let's flip the script and say you and your significant other go to, and I've got a story I could use, but for time's sake I won't, a steakhouse where maybe you've already heard people talk about this place and you look them up on Google and they have great reviews. So you're going in with a very strong expectation of what the experience is going to be. Well, then you go and they crush it. The experience, the atmosphere, the quality of the food, the quality of the service, and you leave that place and you're raving. You're just like, man, that was awesome. Then what happens? You go that weekend, maybe you're at church, you're at a ball game, you're going to tell your buddy, hey, listen, y'all got to go to this ABC steakhouse. Yeah. Now think of that backwards. You paid a whole lot more money to go to that steakhouse than you would have to maybe a Cracker Barrel or a fast food restaurant. End result was you still were fed, you were nourished, right? But the experience was so much better. You are now an unpaid raving fan. So how do you get to that point? And the answer is, I think it's everything. Like every little thing. And you could go into what the atmosphere is, the temperature of the room. I mean, and of course with insurance, it's a different set of things you're looking at. But when you have that customer experience is everything we do, and you really fine tune all the details of it, and realize that when you become that steakhouse that does everything, there's so many other restaurants that are not doing that their opportunity will be there. And that's what we've found over time is, what we do is not rocket science, certainly. I mean, we're just serving people well. And the reality is, in the world of the onlines and the 1-800 numbers and even other local competitors, there's a lot of opportunities where clients are not being served well. And so, when people naturally they're complaining about their insurance, how do you get to the point? This is the question I ask my team and try to repeat in my mind often. How do you get to the point where someone doesn't just use you for insurance, but they would stick their neck out for you and say, hey, someone, they hear the word insurance, oh, you need to call my guy. How do you get to that point? And I think a lot of things have to be true, a lot of little things, but it all comes back to the experience.
Absolutely. Yeah, 100%. You remind me of another restaurant story. Mm-hmm. I was in a restaurant. I was with someone who had a mushroom allergy. Mm. And it was one of these where the food comes out and it's not like sit plated. It's family style. So food's going to be coming out the entire time we're sitting there, right? And every single person, many different people served us, and every single person told us whether there were mushrooms in every single thing. Wow. Like every single person. Yes. And like I said, it was 10 different people, and every single one. This has mushrooms in it. This doesn't have mushrooms in it.
So for the person that had that allergy, they had probably had that experience so different every other place they went to.
100%.
They are probably like over the moon, and they tell everybody.
Well, and I was stunned that every person it's different if it's one person. Sure. It's like, okay, that person can get it. Yeah. But we just went to a restaurant for our anniversary, and they had a card, and that was nice. And I said to my husband, you know what would have made this even more awesome is if every single person that approached our table said happy anniversary. Because I left the card even sitting there, right? Fair. But it's just a tiny, like you say, the tiny little details. Yeah,
because the difference is you can go to a restaurant that has exceptional food, and if the service is poor, you're like, oh, I mean, the food was good, but... And then same thing, roles reversed. You can go and have I would say you can get away better having good service with average food, or even maybe not great food. You're like, well, they were really good. The food, the steak was a little dry. But man, the ones that do it all well, and they don't leave little things missing or little things off, or they don't the devil's in the details. Attention to detail to everything. And it's hard. Nobody's perfect. Nothing is perfect. But when everything goes well, like a well-oiled machine. You're bound to have success. Yeah. Really.
So you had started to tell a story about how you were telling someone about your success and the success you were having, and they named it as the book Raving Fans, right? So you got to read Raving Fans to see all the things that you did, right?
Sure, absolutely.
Talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so what's funny is name drop Jacob Vale, shout out to him. He's a good buddy of mine, and he called me. So when I started in the business, I had a mentor who was a great guy. His name's Mark Allen. He was the heart of a teacher. He instilled a lot into me at a very young age. His last few years in the business were some of my first few years. So he took the heart of a teacher. It was like a father figure for me, really, and just poured knowledge into me. And that gave me such a head start on how to serve people, how to take care of people. So when I had my opportunity to become an agent in 2018, I started also, study of best practices, started talking to the agents that were doing well, what's working for them, what's, things like that. And I kind of just over time created, I guess, I don't know what you would call it, my process or just how we do things. This is like my culture, our team's culture. This is just what we do. And one day Jacob calls me and I had started having some success, and he's kind of picking around like, hey man, congratulations, but by the way, like, what's going on? And I'm a very transparent, very, there's no secrets, there's no mysterious, whatever. It's just good. And I'm very open with that. Yeah. And so when he called me and I got to explain to him what was working for us, he said, what you're doing is basically, or have you ever read the book Raving Fans? And I'm like, no, I have not. And he said, this is what you're doing. And he did a lot of the same things. So I read the book or listened to it on audio, and it's a very short book, very short, simple, but it just goes into what we talked about, the restaurant theory, where if you do a good enough job, people, not only will they continue to use you, but they will then say and become little minions on your behalf. Hey, But it all comes from trust. There has to be an immense level of trust there before someone goes out and says, sticks their neck out for you. For example, like if there are certain people that if they give you a recommendation, you're like, oh, thanks. It may not carry much weight, but when you've got someone that you have the immense trust for and respect for, they're not going to refer you someone that diminishes their credibility, right? Or that nobody wants to do that. So I'm not going to say, hey, you need to call Billy Bob the plumber, and if Billy Bob gets there and he shows up late and he's intoxicated and he does a poor job, it hurts my reputation, right? Yeah. So I'm going to only recommend someone that is going to boost credibility for me, right? Yeah. So that's how people are cautious to recommend something that they do not fully 100% have trust in, and that's what it really comes down to with that Raving Fans is how do you get there? How do you get to that trust level, right? Yeah. So it's a big thing.
So all of the things you're saying make so much sense to me, right? The details, how do you choreograph the experience someone has so the end result is not only happy customer, but pay or free, right? Yeah. Free marketer, exactly. Right? Free 100%. Marketer to it. That sounds hard, though. So, do you have any tips on how do you create culture? Where would you start if you were starting all over again?
Yeah, so I would say I'll give an example of what does that mean, right? Those are really good, looks good on paper statements, but like, what's an example of that? So, for example, and this is very insurance specific, but someone calls in. The examples I give to my team of what I don't want them to do versus what we do. So. Normally, when someone's calling to get insurance, they don't deal with that often. It's confusing. Most people really don't know unless they're an attorney or an insurance agent or just a nerd like me, they really don't know what they're doing. They're just, it's a thing that they have to deal with, right? It's just a necessity, evil, necessary evil is what some people would call insurance. But so when they go to deal with it, they're already like you sucks the air out of the room. They're just like, oh, I got to deal with this today. Well, then if they normally would call and get an experience where it's choppy and they give the information to the person that they're trying to get a quote from, and they're already not kind of helpful and they're just kind of like blah on the phone, and then when they request a quote, the person doesn't call them back till 2 days later, and then they randomly get an email with an attachment with a PDF on there that has the home quote, and maybe they're trying to wait for their car insurance quote too, and they get it from the other person they talked to in the office. And this really
This
happens.
is life. Yeah, this is real life.
Versus what we try to do is set a good, proper expectation with that client when they call in. I always, secret shop yourself. You've probably heard that saying, but what does the customer feel? How does the customer feel? And there's one of the things that I learned from my mentor years ago is keep it simple, stupid. And I say that a lot, and I realize now later as I've gone on, there's a comma in that statement, and stupid kind of refers to the to the subject, which would be me. But it's putting in a way that people understand what they're getting. So when someone calls in, we set proper expectations, and we're very, very grateful. Hey, thank you for thinking of us. Thank you for allowing us this opportunity to earn your business. We don't take that lightly. Here's what we're going to do. And we set a proper expectation with them. We're going to get some basic information. We are going to work on these quotes. One of us will call you back here, over promise, under promise, over deliver. We'll get back with you by this afternoon, by tomorrow, and then try to exceed that, 99% of the time. And so you're telling them what you're going to do, then you do it. And then when we start talking technical things about insurance, we don't, instead of saying for example, when you look at a homeowner's policy, it's got A, B, C, D, E, F on it. It's got dwelling, other structures, personal property. It gets very overwhelming really fast.
Yep.
So we just take a step, slow down, say, okay, let's talk about what this does for you. Okay, so if your house burns down, this is what we're going to pay to rebuild your house. Instead of saying, hey, this is your dwelling coverage's replacement cost. And people are like, okay, what does that mean? Yeah. Mm-hmm. So just taking the time to just get on their level and talk to them in a way that a fifth grader could understand it.
Yeah.
And because one of the things I learned, going back to Mark, my mentor, one of the things I learned early on is when you're talking with someone and you lose them, you go over their head or that doesn't make sense. We're so heavily distracted these days with cell phones. Our attention spans are just minuscule, including mine. So when you lose someone, you start using big words. They're thinking about, okay, for dinner we got pizza. Oh, he's saying something. I better pay attention. So you've got to keep people's attention in a way that makes sense. So just simple explanation, I think, is something that a lot of people miss. So just little things like that are examples of what we do, and then making it to where we do that every time. So every customer, and that kind of goes back to what you said about culture. When someone calls in, this is what we do every single time, so that there's nobody's falling between the cracks. And it's, you talk to Sally, you're going to get a different experience than if you talk to Wendy, than if you talk to Tyler. And it's like, well, I don't want to talk to Wendy because she goofed up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just creating that. This is what we do. This is what we are, and that vision, and then just being very systematized in, detailing that out. This is what we do when this happens. This is what we do when that happens, and that way it's less thinking and just executing a plan. Really.
Yeah, you've given a couple of sound bites that I want to just reiterate because they're so good. One, and this goes way back, but how you do anything is how you do everything, right, is one of the things, is definitely a theme that I'm hearing. And then also the one you just said, a confused buyer doesn't buy. Right. 100%. So using common language to explain it to people.
100%.
Yeah, I still wonder what other structures are because I've got no other structures on my property.
And I
still don't get it
all the time. But for a good example, I'll give you a good example of how good and bad answer would be.
Yeah.
A bad answer on that would be like, well, it just is what it is, Meaghan. Sorry. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, a good answer to that would be, well, hey, Meaghan, here's how this works. Homeowners policies have that built in. So pretty much with any company, you have 10% of your house value is built in whether you need it or not. Like my house, I have 10%. I don't even really have any outside structures, but you're not paying for it. It's a built-in coverage. So a good
I'm getting it for free then.
Exactly. You're getting it for free versus I'm getting it for free versus I'm paying for something I can't use. You know what I mean? So little things like, how does it make the customer feel? And it goes back to this is just how we operate. Little ways you word things. You may be giving the same information to someone, but if you do it two different ways, it dramatically affects the outcome.
Yeah.
their experience, whether or not they trust you, whether or not they refer you. And that kind of really goes into every single interaction. Like what you just said there was a good example of a common question we get. And there's hundreds of those, right? There's hundreds of these little insurance related questions. And it doesn't matter what business you're in. You could be an HVAC person that has this common same set of word tracks that you go through with a customer. And you feel kind of dumb sometimes because you say the same thing over and over and over. But when that HVAC person tells me that, that's the first time I've ever heard it.
Yeah.
So you feel like a recorder just spitting out the same information, but you have not integrity, but consistency of quality of what you're saying needs to stay there, because that may be the only time anybody has ever taken the time to explain that to that person, but it may be the 1,000th time you've said it this year. So
yes.
It's tricky.
Yeah. Yeah, but reminding yourself that everybody's hearing it for the first time.
Yep.
And
Everybody's
so
time is
delivering
valuable.
it with the enthusiasm as well.
100%. Yeah.
So what is what is the message you deliver? Who's the ideal client, and how do you say this is who I work with? And who's the ideal client?
So for us specifically, what we've kind of figured out over time, which Alpha's a little, every insurance company has their kind of cup of tea that they're targeting, but what we do well with is someone who has a home and maybe a couple, 2-3 vehicles, and maybe they've got kids, and they've got kind of a portfolio, if you will, home, auto, cars, maybe an umbrella policy, maybe some life insurance, and we're kind of that one-stop shop for that client. So, and also, we're if someone is just trying to save and just get the cheapest thing out there, we may not be a good fit for them, but what we really pitch, I guess you would say, or where we really come in is the value. So the bang for your buck. We're competitive. We're as competitive just about as anybody, but I'm not saying we'll be the cheapest every time, but what we do bring is the value. So learning how to articulate that to a client, and then, there are some people that, we're just not a good fit. And that's tough, especially early in your career. You want every opportunity. You want every opportunity, and the reality is not everybody is going to be an ideal customer. So, but what I have found is, like, let's just say you are that person who is, you got 2 teens and 4 cars and a house and an umbrella. A lot of your friends are going to be in the same neighborhood, relatively speaking. So the referrals, if you serve them well, they're going to send people that a lot of times replicate or mirror who they are.
Yeah.
Not always, but that we found that time and time again. So once we have kind of found where we're good at and getting our message through and serving those clients well, the stream of people they send to us are
just like them.
Copy and paste, same people.
Which is fantastic. Which is fantastic. Awesome. Well, I think you've shared everything as to why it's an easy yes for people to want to do business with you and want to share, because you've built on that culture and all of those kinds of things. Giving advice to the person, you're 3 years from retiring and you're not going to do this anymore. What advice would you give to that person who's coming along just like the person did for you? Yeah,
it's a great question. I think that I would probably give a lot of the same advice that I picked up, and I think it all, we can get up into the, the sales numbers and the quotas and all that, and none of that really matters. What matters is customer service and serving people, helping people. And I tell my team often, this is a people business, and if you don't like people, you're gonna have a hard time. You have to really enjoy serving people and helping them in whether it's helping them save money, helping them in a catastrophic event. And if you have the quote unquote I love helping people as your heart and that servant's heart, then the job comes easy. It just it just takes time. You just become serving them better and trying to perfect your craft. So always be learning. Always remember, and I tell my team this all the time, their paychecks, and even my paycheck may say, Ross Agency LLC, but it should say to the customers who trust Ross Agency LLC. Every penny that we earn for our families to help our families comes from someone who trusts us, and keeping that in the core of everything we do. I think it's humbling, but it's also it's healthy, and so just doing that, and then also always be learning. There's I've been doing this. I've been very blessed to have the success I have, but and I get agents that call me regularly, new agents getting in the business. I was that guy. I was the guy that was literally calling the successful agents. What are you doing? What's working? and trying to implement it. So, and even the ones that call me today, I'm also asking them questions. Hey man, what's working for you? And trying, all in efforts of how can we better serve. And I think if you have that mindset and have the right work ethic and have the right attitude, then those are the things that make you successful in the long term. It's not about a pitch. It's not about this great. It's all about serving someone.
What I find fascinating about this particular conversation also is it's not about the technology. You haven't mentioned technology, you haven't mentioned AI, you haven't mentioned, it's all about the customer, connecting them. How do they feel? How do they ultimately, what are they looking for? Getting really the psychology behind them. And then the other thing that I love about businesses that are easy to refer to is it is that simple soundbite, right? Tyler's going to take care of you like no one else. Correct. He is going to explain. You are going to understand insurance for the first time in your life.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Those little tiny sound bites of, here's where something is really, really unique. And that's what makes a business referable.
It is. Well, it's, you think about it like when someone has a problem, and businesses most of the time are a solution to a problem. And the reality, whether it's insurance, whether it's a trade, whether it's you're a realtor, you're just solving a problem for someone. And, you need to be able to do it well. But if you get enough people that know you do it well and that trust you, you can go buy leads. You can go do you can buy every billboard between here and the beach. But at the end of the day, and that's great. They all have their place, but you can never beat word of mouth. Recommendations, I just think about it now, like if I need a plumber, if I need a roofer, if I need any service, I'm going to go off of what someone who I trust's recommendations, because that's just how, yes, we live in a social media world. Yes, we live in where AI is taking over the world or whatever, but people, we're still humans. We still, the connection, the trust, that's what drives human connection, I feel like, in terms of business. But yeah, 100%.
Yeah. People don't believe ads; they believe other people.
Stories, stories sell too.
Yeah, and that is absolutely yours. This is just absolutely fantastic. Tons of nuggets. I need to go back and read Raving Fans.
I do too.
I don't remember if I needed to reread it or if I need to read it.
It's a good one.
Yeah, that is a big takeaway, I think, from everyone as well. So where can people find you if they want to get in contact with you?
So I'm easy. Just Google me. Is this the term now? You can look us up, Tyler Ross, Alpha Insurance. You'll find our Google page. You'll find my page where I've got my contact information. My cell phone number's on there. So text me, email me, call me. I'm easy to locate.
Fantastic.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, clarity, credibility, and consistency. I think that's the theme we heard today. That's what makes an easy yes for not only your customers, but people who want to pass you referrals as well. So take the time to tighten up your message, make it simple for other people to refer to you, create a culture where people want to refer you as well. And if you missed our earlier episode on building your referral engine or creating consistent habits, go back and watch those next, and be sure to subscribe so you never miss a lesson that helps you go from overlooked to fully booked.